If you were to meet a vampire and they said that they could provide you with the most euphoric experience of your life by sucking your blood, and you don't have to worry about catching diseases, you're not going to get hepatitis or anything, and you're pretty sure that they're not going to kill you now or later on, would you do it? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I See Melanie. Today, we'll be talking about one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and that is Interview with the Vampire. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I've done some review videos of some of the season 2 episodes this past spring and summer, but I wanted to go back all the way to season 1 because this show is just so great. It's such a great TV show to talk about. And I want to start from the beginning. Because I have watched the entire series and I know what happens all the way to the end, this review that I'm doing of season 1, episode 1 will take all that information into account. So this is a retrospective review. That being said, of course, there's going to be spoilers. So this is meant for people who have watched the entire series. If you haven't watched the entire series, I suggest you do these 2 things. 1, you do yourself the favor, get yourself the AMC Plus app, and watch the entire series. You'll be very happy that you did because this show was so good. But before you do that, make sure you save this video, save it in your watch later list, whoever you need to do that so you know where to come back to watch this review. Now, for reference, I have watched the movie. I watched it in 1995. I rented it on VHS, totally forgot everything about it, and I just rewatched the movie this past summer. And a few days ago, I got the book. I'm about 50 pages in, and so I can't really call myself a book reader, but I am a book reader. That being said, I will only be considering things that are in the TV show when I do these reviews. Let's start with episode 1. Because we have all watched the show, I'm not going to do a scene-by-scene recap, but of course I will talk about major plot points, character developments, and so on, so we will touch on the major scenes. This episode is really foundational to understand who Louis is and his relationship with Lestat, and we know that it's set up in present-day Dubai and also 1910 New Orleans. So most of this episode will be talking about things that happened in 1910, but we'll start off in Dubai. So in Dubai, we have 3 characters. We've got Daniel Malloy, we've got Rashid, and we've got Louis. Let's start off with Daniel. So Daniel interviewed Louis about 50 years prior, and we know that interview ended in a lot of mayhem. Daniel doesn't remember everything in that interview, and he also doesn't remember if he and Louis did anything sexual. So this is what my take on Daniel. Daniel is a 70-year-old man who has questions about his sexuality. I think Daniel is still closeted to this day, and he's looking for some degree of closure. Now, he's going into the lion's den. He's going to see the vampire who bit him all those years ago. He still has the scars to prove it, but his career is on the downslide. He doesn't have a good relationship with his family. His health isn't good. He really has nothing to lose at this point, and he does have $10 million to gain. So he is doing this interview with Louis now. Daniel and Louis' first encounter after all this time is a little contentious. I actually forgot how bad it was when they first met. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about another person who we meet. We meet Rashid, who we later find out is Armand Amadeo Arun. And so when I was watching this, I just thought, okay, this is one of Louis' helpers, his servant, his butler. I had no idea that this man, this young man, would be so instrumental in so much of the story going forward. But let's talk about Louis. Present day Louis, 2022 Louis. 2022 Louis and 1910 Louis, 2 very different people. First off, when we see him, again, the interaction between he and Daniel is very contentious. Even the invitation that they sent Daniel was so over the top. Like, did they need to do all of that? And at the part where Louis stretches out his arm to the sun to show Daniel that he still is a vampire and that he burns, he didn't need to do that. I personally think he did that to trigger Armand and remind him of what went down the trial. And this entire thing was an orchestration that Louis and Armand set up. Armand playing his butler, them playing out their dom-sub dynamic that I'm so tired of it. I'm so glad they're broken up now. It was just a whole charade, a whole song and dance, and old Louis was not like that. Let's talk about 1910 Louis. So 1910 Louis, Louisiana, New Orleans Louis is my boy. I love Louis so much. I am a Louis apologist. As I have said in previous videos, Louis can't do anything wrong in my eyes. Except he can, and he does quite often. Louis disappoints me quite a lot, but there are so many factors that make me understand him more and make him such a sympathetic character that I can kind of, at points, see past his bad spots. So let's talk about things that shaped Louis in 1910. So he is very much a family man. He has got a sister, a brother, and a mother. And he is the man of the house because his father has died and the business dealings and the finances are now his responsibility. So we see he's very generous with his sister who's about to get married. He's got his brother who he just took out of an institution because we know Paul has some mental health issues and he loves his brother very, very dearly. And then we've got his Mama Dulac, Florence, who I do not like. So she strikes me as a type of woman who wants to live this high-end lifestyle, and there's nothing really wrong with that, but she'll do it at any cost, and she doesn't care what that means in terms of the actual business and what that's doing to Louis. So we know Louis is essentially a pimp. He owns a brothel, and back in that day, that was a very common business, unfortunately. And so at the breakfast that day, when we hear Paul talking about how Louis is pimping out these girls, and Mama Dulac says, "Oh, he'll find a respectable job later. I don't want to worry about the particulars," because she doesn't care, even though she purports to be a lady who's very devout, she's Catholic. She doesn't care if her son has to violate all the rules that Jesus would want her to follow. She has waitstaff, she has a butler, she has a huge estate. And she is very cold to Louis as we see going further. And Louis is 33 years old. And at this point, especially back in that day, this would be the time when he would be taking off, starting his own family. But he's not doing that for another reason, is because Louis is gay. It is 1910. People are not allowed to be openly gay at all. So we know that he's had dalliances with men, but he obviously can't have a full-fledged relationship with one. And so what he does to keep up appearances, to let people believe that he is straight, is he has this lady, Miss Lily, who he goes to and is seen with in the saloons in public. And another element that shapes Louis is racism. This is 1910 in the US, in the South, where there are Jim Crow laws in existence. And there's still segregation in Louisiana, in New Orleans. Louis has some advantages. I think him being a light-skinned Creole man does help in some ways, but he still experiences racism. And he's always kind of halfway there because he is able to hobnob with the aldermans and the other businessmen in the area, but he's not treated the same way the other white men are treated. So when he goes to these games, he has to call the men sir. They call him boy. They see him as the exceptional Negro because in their eyes, like, Louis is great, but other black people, they're not as good as him. When Louis and any other black person there is just as good, if not better, than these racist white men. And even at that point where Louis goes to tend to Fenwick's head when he gets beat up at the saloon, the alderman sees a black arm, he sees black skin, and he immediately calls him the N-word. But then when he sees, oh, it's Louis, he's like, oh my gosh, Louis, I'm so sorry. And that shouldn't be. And Louis feels as though he just needs to keep up appearances. He needs to look tough. So that scene on the street where he pulls a knife out on his brother, he had no intention of hurting his brother, but he had to let people know that he is business because he has so much weight on his shoulders. And all those things, to me, make him such a sympathetic character. He is a beautiful man going through so many hardships. And of course, another thing that makes me like the character so much is the portrayal by Jacob Anderson, another beautiful man who's a beautiful actor, and he executes Louis' performances so well. Now let's talk about the Louis and Lestat of it all. Now, Lestat first sees Louis in that same instance where Louis is pulling the knife out on his brother. And he sees this. He sees this beautiful man acting aggressively, and he thinks, I want him. He is perfect for me. Little does he know that that knife is going to play a major part in the demise of their relationship 30 years later. Louis and Lestat meet at the brothel, and immediately antagonism and being competitive with each other comes to play. And again, this is going to happen throughout their entire relationship. So Lestat says to him off the bat, I'm surprised they let you in because he's black. Like, why would you say that? The reason why Lestat said that was to get Louis back up, to get him to remember who he is. Louis and Lestat start talking, and Miss Lily is there too, and immediately they are both captivated by each other for different reasons. For one, Lestat just thinks he's hot and he wants to make him his man. And Louis is captivated. He's enchanted by him when he's talking about his travels and how he planned on going up north, but he stayed here. And he was so impressed by this beautiful young man who pulled a knife out on his brother's throat. We see Louis, and he's literally like transfixed, and he can't move. He's paralyzed by Lestat's words. And my impression is, yes, Lestat's a vampire. He's got these special tricks. But I feel as though this is just Lestat's personality coming out and really captivating people, because Lestat is a presence. If I met Lestat on the street today, I would just be looking at him in awe, because he's one of the most intriguing beings I could meet. When it comes to the point where Miss Lily has to decide which man she's going to go home with that night, and Louis and Lestat are outbidding each other, right? So they're being competitive. But then Lestat wins it by dropping the ring to up the ante, and Louis is pissed and he feels emasculated, but he left that place thinking of nobody but Lestat, and Lestat knew exactly what he was doing. Then later on, when they meet at the poker game, so Louis comes in, he sees that he's there. He's like, oh gosh, this annoying guy is here again. And Lestat is just looking at him thinking, yep, I'm going to make you mine. And this is a time where Lestat gets to see just how badly Louis is being treated. So we see that these men want him to work for them, but they want to pay him such a paltry amount. And this is where we see one of Lestat's tricks for the first time. Tricks, I say. So Lestat stops him from moving, everything freezes, and he's talking telepathically to Louis. And Louis is looking around like, what is going on? And Lestat is saying, why do you let these men talk to you like that? For me, sometimes Lestat with the whole like racism situation, it's like, you shouldn't be asking the person who is a victim of racism why the racist men are being racist to him and why he's reacting in the way he's reacting. You're asking the wrong question to the wrong person. Anyway, we see that he doesn't like this, and he changes the cards so that Louis would win. And so now Louis is like, okay, this guy, he's not half bad after all. So, as I mentioned, I love Louis, but I have to admit, Louis sometimes isn't the most forthcoming. He stretches the truth, he embellishes things, and sometimes he just flat out lies. So he says he was being hunted. Now, they were spending all this time together. They were going on park dates. They were having deep conversations. They went clothes shopping together. They went to the opera. They went for gumbo. They were spending a lot of time together. And Louis said during this entire thing that Lestat was hunting him. I think that Louis knows throughout all this time he's spending with Lestat, that something is going down between them. They are not platonic friends. Lestat knows he's gay. I'm sure even aside from him reading his mind, he can just get vibes. He knows he's gay. Louis knows he's gay. Louis knows he himself is gay, and I could probably guess he thinks Lestat is half queer, as he says later on. So him being hunted, I think he's being hunted in the way that I guess technically anyone's being hunted when somebody is trying to make them their lover. But Louis was a willing participant in all of this. I don't think necessarily that Louis knew that this guy is a vampire, but I will say this about him calling Lestat's tricks. So when he says Lestat has tricks, when I think about tricks, I think about things like people pulling out quarters from somebody's ear or a rabbit from a hat. I don't think about somebody speaking to me telepathically, or somebody stopping time or stopping movement. That is beyond the trick. Anyone who can do that is otherworldly. They are not regular humans. So I believe that Louis understood that Lestat was something else. He was not a regular human being. So yeah, and he knew they were dating. They were dating. Straight up, they were dating. We get to the point where Louis brings his he ain't white, he French friend home to meet his family at a dinner party. So we see them all, and Paul is asking questions. Again, Paul says what he wants to say, and he asks what the nature of their relationship is. And we see all their eyes turn down Louis, the mom, the sister, and everybody. And later on, we hear Paul say, "Oh, I'm not being rude, I'm just asking." This is evidence to Lestat that Louis is also experiencing internalized and external homophobia from his family. And this is another reason why Lestat feels as though Louis could be living a better life. Racism, homophobia, all these things are things that Lestat can't understand, and he doesn't want Louis to experience. After the dinner, Louis and Lestat are walking back towards Lestat's house, and Louis is drinking from a flask. And as he mentioned, he was a rougher thing back then, and he would do that probably to make himself feel better, to numb the pain that he's going through. And Lestat asks Louis for a nightcap. Now, I'm pretty sure that someone asking you to come home for a nightcap is the same thing, or meant the same thing in 1910 as it does today. Louis knows exactly what Lestat was asking him. And when Lestat's asking him this, he's backing up, walking towards his front door. Louis says, "Oh no, I shouldn't. I should go to the cribs and see what's going on over there." But as he's saying no, he's walking right towards the door as well, because his body is telling him, yeah, I want to take advantage of this opportunity. Miss Lily is there to entice him to go in, but I personally believe Miss Lily didn't have to be there. Louis wanted to go. She kind of greased the wheels a little bit in that effort, but if she was home that night or was another man that night, Louis would have gone in willingly. They're in the living room now, and Miss Lily is doing what she was paid to do, and the whole time Lestat is looking. And Louis calls him out saying, "What, you just like to watch? Are you some kind of a creeper?" And of course, during this time, Louis is making direct eye contact with Lestat the entire time. The only time he breaks it is when Miss Lily gets literally right up in his face. And then when Lestat reaches over to the chair, he's sitting in the chair now, and he reaches his hand out, and it goes by Louis' face. And Louis embraces it. And listen to this, okay? Louis knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that that big hand, that big wrist, that was not Miss Lily's hand. That was a man's hand. That was Lestat's hand. And he did what he did willingly. And then he slaps it away because he doesn't want to look gay in front of somebody else. Now, Miss Lily admitted that when they get together, they mostly talk. Miss Lily knows he's gay too, or easily suspects it. And she don't care. She's like, no, go for it. Have fun. And we know Miss Lily is put to sleep. So now this is Louis' turn to go in. And he goes in for a kiss. They start kissing very passionately. And they end up against the wall. But the entire time, they're kind of holding hands. They look as though they're arm wrestling. Again, they're trying to assert dominance. And Lestat is the one who wins out on this. So he spins him around. And at this point, he goes in and he sucks his blood. And I know Louis was in throes of increasing wonder at this time, but a man sucking your blood is odd. That is not a regular occurrence. Louis knows that this man is otherworldly. And then 2 seconds later, they're levitating in the air. So yeah, this is not normal. This guy is not a normal guy. He's not human. And then at the point where Lestat goes, when they're done, Lestat goes to heal his wound, and they're on the couch and they're looking at each other with so much intimacy and passion, and they look so beautiful together. These guys are gorgeous. And he says at this point, he is feeling an intimacy unlike anything he has ever known in his life. I was asking myself this hypothetical question because vampires don't exist in real life. And now I'm going to ask you, if you were to meet a vampire and they said that they could provide you with the most euphoric experience of your life by sucking your blood, And you don't have to worry about catching diseases. You're not going to get hepatitis or anything. And you're pretty sure that they're not going to kill you now or later on. Would you do it? And I think I would. It sounds like fun. It looks like fun. And Louis says you only feel this rush the first time it happens, so I would only do it one time. And yeah, I feel comfortable sharing that feeling with you all because I know this scenario will never play out in real life. Even though Louis has the best night of his life, he decides he can never do this again. He can't be an openly gay black man in 1910, and he decides to ghost Lestat at this point. Soon after, Louis experiences two pretty big losses, his brother and Miss Lily. So we're at Grace's wedding, and Louis and his brother are dancing in her honor. Now, I have to say, when I was watching this show originally for the first time, I was already really into it. I thought it was really good. But this scene, I thought it was so charming to see them have this moment where they're dancing, having fun, having a nice brotherly moment. It was so lovely. And I was wondering, oh, are they actually dancing? Because they were really good. And I saw Jacob Anderson confirm it. Yes, they actually did all the dancing themselves. So it was very, very lovely. And of course, they had that nice moment on the roof where they're talking about the checkered cake that Paul ate. And Paul mentions that, oh, Louis was dancing with some lady very closely at the wedding, and that if he's dancing that closely with somebody, he should be married to them. Little does Paul know that Louis was dancing with somebody very closely not too long ago, and he ends up married at the end of the episode. But of course, we know this ends in Paul's death, his suicide. And of course, Louis is heartbroken, and his terrible mother blames him for his brother's death. Another reason why I cannot stand Mama Dulac. So Louis is not good. Then of course we have the funeral, and he's tormented. Lestat is approaching him, asking him to come by when he's clearly very sad. And then when he goes to find Miss Lily to seek some comfort, he's drunk, he's sad, everything is going badly. Then we find out that she is dead too, and it's Lestat who killed her. So I was thinking about why Lestat killed her, of all people. Miss Lily was a nice lady. There are a couple of reasons why I think he killed her. One, he has no regard for human life anyway, so he just killed her to kill her. Obviously, he had opportunity because he was hanging out with her a lot, so she was right there, so he could just do that. Also, I think, to Lestat, he knows that Louis is going through all these different struggles. I believe he saw Miss Lily as a representation of Louis not living his authentic self, his authentic life. So Miss Lily, again, she kind of presents as a beard, and he knows that Louis is gay, and he's putting on a front with this lady. So I think that's part of the reason why. Again, it's not for him to decide what Louis does with his life, but I do think that was part of his thought process. And I have to say, I don't think that Lestat influenced Paul to kill himself. I know that's kind of a debated thing in the fan base. I know Sam Reed confirmed that no, he didn't kill Paul. And to be honest, it never crossed my mind that Lestat had anything to do with Paul's death until Louis brought it up in episode 6. I just assumed that this is something that Paul chose to do, whether it was deliberate or because of his mental health issues. But of course, it was very, very sad. And so now Louis is drunk, sad. He feels as though he has no one to turn to. His sister has started off her new life. His mother is a terrible person who we can't go to. And of course, Lestat is in his brain and he's just all haywire. Now let's talk about the church scene. So I have seen this scene 1,000 times, and I still don't have one concrete feeling towards it because there was a lot going on. There was a lot on display. There was grief, there was sorrow, there was torment, there was vulnerability, there was violence, there was extreme brutality, there was love, there was romance, all those things all at once. It was beautiful and in equal measure, terrifying. So we see Louis in the confession box talking about all the things that have been weighing him down. So he feels bad for running a brothel, being a pimp, capitalizing off these unfortunate women. He feels like he's a bad brother. He feels bad for having slept with a man. He feels like this man is the devil and the devil is taking over him and he doesn't know what to do, but he wants to end things. He doesn't want to live anymore. In comes a hurricane called Lestat, who yanks that priest away, kills him in the most brutal of fashions. and he kills the other priest as well. And in this, he is revealing his vampiric nature. Again, Louis has an idea that this guy is otherworldly, but I don't think he expected to see this level of brutality and violence. So it's scary to him, as it would be to anybody. And Lestat, he is upset that Louis is living this life that he shouldn't be. Louis deserves so much more. Lestat thinks he's a beautiful person. He's a wonderful person who deserves the best in life. And he's almost mad at him for accepting all these things that society and people are imposing on him, on Louis. And so he's approaching him. Louis is scared. Louis falls backwards. But then Lestat goes in, and he has a way about him, as Louis always says. Lestat talks to Louis in a way that no one has ever talked to him before. He felt seen. He felt loved. He felt like this person really understands me and doesn't want me to be in pain. And Lestat tells him, I love you. You are wonderful. You deserve so much more than what you're getting. You don't deserve to have everyone judging you all the time. You are great in and of yourself. But this life isn't working for you. I can give you a new life where you can be the true, authentic person that you are. And we can be together literally forever and have a beautiful life together. So this is where I feel kind of gray about it, because I think, okay, Louis is in a bad spot and there's a good chance that he would have ended his life. But this man comes in and he presents him with all these lovely options. Now, again, I do believe that Louis knew that this man was not a human from the jump. He knew that something was different about him. And I do think that the option of killing himself versus having this great life, I do think that he went into vampirism knowing to a degree what it entailed. So I do think that he would have chosen to be a vampire. But in that instance where you've got this man who has just shown you that he can be very violent and that he has just killed 2 people in the space of, 20 seconds, in that circumstance, what choice do you really have? Because even though there are 2 roads he could have taken and he decides to take this road, he should have the option to also take this road if he wants to. But in that circumstance, yeah, if this violent guy is right here, I'm going to take this road, because there's a very good chance that he could end up just as dead as those 2 priests. And so that's why I feel weird about it. And obviously, this becomes a point of contention in the relationship going forward. So Louis always blames Lestat for turning him into this vampire. So yeah, it's a weird, it's a lot going on in that scene. But yes, he says yes. And they're there at the altar. Louis seals the deal with a kiss. These 2 vampires, or these 2 men, are kissing at the altar. So this is essentially them getting married, tying themselves to each other. And then Lestat goes in, he drains the blood, he feeds him the blood. Louis opens his eyes. We see his eyes are now that tealish color, and he is a vampire. And the 2 of them, their hearts have become one. They're beating in sync. And it is the end, and it's the beginning. And I love this episode so much. I think this is the best pilot I have ever seen in my entire life. This episode on its own, this could be a short movie. It's just so complete in and of itself. Like, I obviously want to see the end of it. Let's see what happened going forward. But it's a complete story right in this episode. So that's where we end. Now let's talk about my feelings about Louis and Lestat in general from this point in 1910 all the way to 2022. Because I feel as though in previous videos where I was talking about them, I didn't have a very nuanced approach. And so I want to explain myself now. So ultimately, I really do love Louis and Lestat together. I think they love each other very, very much. And for the longest time, I would say I think Lestat loves Louis more than Louis loves Lestat. But by the end of everything, knowing what I know, what happened in Paris and in 2022, I think the love is equal. But they just kind of show it in different ways. I always say their relationship is full of love and dysfunction. And the dysfunction is to the nth degree. I think the fundamental issue that gets in the way of their love and their relationship is just vampirism on its own. Louis hasn't accepted the fact that he is a vampire, that his life has changed, that he no longer can be close to humans, he can no longer be close to his family. Running a business is going to be hard. He has to kill people every day. And he only has one person who he can go to, Lestat, because he's the only other vampire. And he resents this man because he resents all the things that being a vampire changed in his life, from turning to a human to a vampire. And he throws this in Lestat's face all the time. And Lestat, he feels as though Louis should embrace this new life. His old life wasn't very good. He sees it as a rejection of him. And he just wants Louis to be as hedonistic as he is, and they can be happy vampires together. But that's not how things shook out. And yeah, everyday fights about, why are you killing people like this? Why are you eating rats? Why are you doing this? So that's the fundamental thing that's between them. But there are also other things like the race issue. Louis is still experiencing racism in this new life as a vampire, because being a vampire doesn't take you away from this human society where racism is still very much alive. And I think Lestat, he understands that Louis does experience this and he doesn't like it, but sometimes he doesn't understand how Louis is reacting to these acts of racism. And also there are differences between the two of them as an interracial couple, that there are circumstances where Louis literally can't be in certain circumstances. He can't be in certain places. He can't buy certain pieces of real estate. And Lestat can do whatever he wants because he's a white guy. And there are a lot of interpersonal elements at play too. Let's take Lestat. Lestat has a humongous personality. He is a lot to deal with. And he is the type of person, if he were my friend, I would hang out with him. We'd go out to drinks. We'd have a great time. We'd kiki. We'd watch trash TV together. Then after that night is done, I would say, okay, Lestat, it's been real. I'll see you in 6 months, because he's the type of person that you can only deal with in small doses, at least someone like me. And then the two of them, they're always kind of competing with each other, right? So Lestat decides, hey, I'm going to open up the relationship. Louis says, okay, I'm going to take advantage of that. I do that, and then Lestat gets mad. And it's just always a back and forth with them. Louis can be very abusive and indifferent with his words. They go through a lot of different sex droughts between them for various and sundry reasons. They're just not very compatible with each other. And then when they decide in 10 minutes to have a baby together, they don't know how to raise her. They conflict so much on their parenting styles, and a whole lot of other drama comes in when Claudia comes into their life. And it's not Claudia's fault, it's their fault, because they should have never brought her into their lives. But we'll talk about that in episode 4's recap. Violence also plays a part in their relationship, whether it's threats of violence or gruesome acts of violence. So yes, they really aren't a good match on paper, but they do love each other throughout this entire thing. We see little acts of love with them all the time. And the vampire bond is something that just can't be broken between the two of them. And yes, they're immortal and they have an open relationship. And if you're going to live forever, why not, have a little variety? But for their sake, and actually for the sake of anybody who thinks they can get in between them, Armand, Antoinette, anybody else in the future, really save yourself the hassle. Don't try to get too close to them. Don't try to replace the other person, because you will never win. Between the two of them, they are always going to be the most important people to each other. Their own daughter wasn't important enough for them to compromise on each other. So yes, they are meant to be together. The vampire bond is something really for real. And yeah, that's it. Louis and Lestat. And Sam and Jacob have great chemistry together. They're both very good looking, so it's nice to see them on screen. And they're both fabulous actors. I can't imagine any other actors playing these roles. So yeah, so that is my recap for episode 1. As you can tell, I thoroughly enjoy the show. I love this show so much. I only have one friend who watches it. So I only have one person who I can talk to. So that's why I really like doing these videos. There's so much in the story. There's so many shades of gray, so many things to talk about. And that's why I'm so excited to do all these retrospective videos. So the next one is going to be uploaded right after this. So it's going to be somewhere here. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, I will see you next time here on I See Melanie to talk about another Interview with the Vampire episode. Okay? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.